नित्यलीला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्यवर्य अष्टोत्तरशत श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की ग्रंथराज श्री श्री भक्ति रसामृत सिंधु की, द नेक्टर ऑफ डिवोशन इवनिंग सेमिनार की, युग धर्म श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की, समवेत भक्त वृंद की, निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल, हरि हरि बोल। ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, that's fine. At the very onset of present, I would like to initially offer my most respectfully prostrated obeisances unto the lotus feet of their divine conjugal lordships, Shri Shri Radha and Madan Mohan Dev Ji, along with their eternal transcendental companions such as Shri Lalita Devi, Shri Vishakha Devi, Shri Ruparati Manjari, etc. And along with them, I would also like to submit my most respectfully prostrated homages unto the lotus feet of their divine transcendental lordships, Shri Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Shri Shri Nityananda Prabhu, along with their perpetual divine entourage such as Shri Rupa Goswami, Shri Sanatana Goswami, and all the 6 Goswamis of Shri Dham Vrindavan. Finally, I would also like to pay my obeisances and due honorary respects unto the lotus feet of His Divine Grace, Abhaya Charanarinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who has, being an adept, very artistically propagated the doctrine of Krishna consciousness, imbued with pure devotional transcendental sentiments and moods, throughout this world in this present modern era in a most unique and fantastic unprecedented way. Conclusively, I would also like to pay my obeisances and due respects unto the lotus feet of the initiating spiritual master as well as all the preceptorial spiritual masters, along with all the senior Vaishnava devotees of the Lord present here. Thereafter, I would now like to commence the context of our current day's discussion, especially the context and topic pertaining to the nectar of devotion, alias Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami. So, as we were discussing in our day before yesterday's session, so as we were discussing in our day before yesterday's session, the glories and the preeminent exalted position of Srila Rupa Goswami, who is one of the most intimate associates of Lord Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And while delving deep into the profound depth of the ocean of the glorification of Srila Rupa Goswami, we found how Srila Rupa Goswami is one of the most important eternal associates participating in the eternal pastimes of Sri Sri Radha and Govinda's Nitya Leela in Vrindavan. And we also discussed about the 5 types of mellows or relationships, and we also discussed about the Shantarati. The Shantarati, which is mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gives the instructions in regards to the science of the mellows of devotional service, Bhakti Ras Vigyan, when he imparts that science to Rupa Goswami at the sacred conjunction of the three rivers known as Prayag. At that time, Sri Rupa Goswami is being told by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu the various definitive statements in regards to the 5-fold relationships existing between living entity, between a devotee and to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna Chandra. So, while defining Shantaras, Sri Mahaprabhu said, Swarga Moksha Krishna Bhakta Naraka Karimane Krishna Nishtha Krishna Tyaga Shantir Duigune Shantir Swabhava Krishne Mamata Dandahina Param Brahma Paramatma Jnana Pravina. That the definition given of Shantaras by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is that a pure devotee, devotee of the Lord, who is serving the Lord on the platform of the passive state of devotion known as Shantaras or Shantarati, he never desires, he never hankers after either the sensual gratification of multifarious types available in the celestial heavenly planets, or he never hankers even after the 5 types of liberations available at hand. So, as we discussed yesterday in depth about the 5 types of liberations, among the 5 types of liberations, 4 types of liberations like Sarshti Mukti, Samithya Mukti, Sarupya Mukti and Salokya Mukti. That means excluding the Brahma Sayujya Mukti, excluding the liberation wherein the living entity merges himself into the absolute truth, excluding that liberation, all the other 4 types of liberations are known as personal liberations or Savishesha Muktis, personal liberations. Whereas the 5th type of liberation, which is the impersonal liberation, the Sayujya Mukti, that is completely in contradiction with the basic fundamentals of the Bhakti Marg, of the path of devotional service. The basic fundamentals of the path of devotional service constitute the sentiment and relationship of the Lord being the served and the living entity being the Lord's servitor. This relationship of servitor and served, this relationship between the served principle and the servitor principle, this relationship of Sevya Sevak Bhav is forming the core, most essential base of the path of devotion. Whereas in the impersonal liberation, living entities' individual conception of individual existence is destroyed. So there is no question of on the part of that living entity who has merged into the impersonal Brahman to reckon or to consider himself as a servant of the Lord, because for being the servant of the Lord, one needs individual existence, whereas that living entity considers himself to have become one with the impersonal aspect of the Lord. So the question of Sivya Sevaka Bhav, the question of relationship between servant and the Savaita principle never arises in the case of Brahmasayuja Mukti. That is why it is completely contradictory to the very nature and to the very basic fundamental concepts and to the very essential core of the path of devotion. So the devotees, the pure devotees of the Lord, never do aspire after this impersonal liberation. But now what is the most astonishing aspect? The most astonishing aspect is the pure devotees of the Lord do not even aspire, do not even hanker after the other four types of personal liberations. When one enters into the Vaikuntha planets, when one enters into the Vaikuntha planets, which is known as Sarokya Mukti, and he begins inhabiting there in the Vaikuntha planets, into the transcendental Vaikuntha regions. But even though that Sarokya Mukti, in that Sarokya Mukti, the liberated living entity retains his individual existence, but still that personal liberation, along with all the other four types of personal liberations, is altogether rejected in totality by the practitioners of the path of pure devotion. And that is why Lord Kapil Deva states to his mother Devahuti, Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya Nirgunasya Samatam Salokya Sarshti Samipya Saharupyaikattvamapyuta Diyamanam Nagrihranti Vinamat Sevanam Chamaha. Lord Kapil Dev, being the Bhagavan Shakti-avesh avatar of Lord Narayana. There are two types of Shakti-avesh avatars. There are two types of empowered incarnations. When Lord himself transforms into an empowered incarnation, then he is known as Bhagavan Shakti-avesh avatar. And when Lord invests some of his transcendental, supernatural and supramundane energies into unto some of his highly qualified devotees to act on his behalf as proxy or ad hoc representative, then those devotees of the Lord who are thus empowered and who are thus invested with the Lord's energies and potencies are known as, or they come to be known as Jiva Shakti-avesh avatars. Jiva Shakti-avesh. So Kapil Dev, he is Bhagavan Shakti-avesh avatar. He is the Lord himself, but not manifesting all the six opulences. That's the difference. The difference between Leela avatar and Shakti-avesh avatar. What is the most basic difference? According to the Laghu Bhagavatamrita's analysis of Rupa Goswami, what is the most fundamental difference between the pastime incarnations, between the Leela avatars and the Shakti-avesh avatars or the empowered incarnations? The most basic theoretical difference underlying both of these categories is that in the pastimes incarnations, like Sri Ramachandra, like Sri Narasimhadev, Sri Matsyadev, Sri Varaha, Sri Kurma, etc., all these pastime incarnations, as well as the first and the second quadruple expansions known as Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna and Aniruddha, all of these manifest the six opulences in full. Simultaneously, they manifest all the six opulences in totality. But when Lord himself rather sometimes manifests as possessing or as manifesting only one out of these six opulences, or maybe two or three out of these six opulences, but not all the six opulences in totality, then that form of the Lord is known as Bhagavan Shakti-avesh. Lord himself manifests into a form possessing limited power. Actually, that form is not possessing limited power, it is possessing unlimited prowess. Just like the original form of the Lord is also possessing unlimited prowess, in the same way, the Bhagavan Shakti-avesh avatar is also possessing unlimited prowess, but it is only manifesting some of its prowess, not all. The question of manifesting the prowess is what makes different the Bhagavan Shakti-avesh avatar from the Leela avatar. But on the other hand, when Lord invests some of his transcendental potencies into some living entity who is the product of the marginal potency. Then that living entity being empowered by that particular potency of the Lord in a particular menial amount comes to be known as Jiva Shaktyavish. So that's the difference between the Jiva Shaktyavish and the Bhagavad Shaktyavish. Now, Kapil Dev is Bhagavad Shaktyavish avatar. He is Lord Narayana himself. He is not a Jiva, he is not a living entity. He is not a living entity like Prithu and Dattatreya, etc. He is Bhagavad Shaktyavish avatar. And the proof that he is Bhagavad Shaktyavish avatar is that Kapil Dev uses, instead of saying, perform devotional service unto Lord Narayana, he tells his mother, perform devotional service unto myself. Because instead of using the word Bhagavan or Narayana or Vishnu or the personality of Godhead, he uses his own name, or he indicates his own self to be the objective of the devotion of devotees. That is why it is considered that he is Bhagavad Shaktyavish avatar. He is not different from Lord Narayana. So, when Kapil Deva says, Salok ke sarshti sanik ke sarup yaikat kvamakyuta diyamanam na krishnanti vinamat sevanam janana. Kapil Deva says, even if I be the giver, in the mood of being Bhagavan himself, because he is Bhagavad Shaktyavish, so in the mood of being Bhagavan himself, the Kapil Deva states that even if I, the personality of Godhead, even if I be the giver, even if I be the alloter, even if I be the bestower and reward giver of these 5 types of liberations unto my devotees, without giving any condition, even then my devotees will not accept. What to speak of impersonal liberation? What to speak of the so-called Ekatva or Brahma Sayujya or Kaivalya Mukti? But even the other 4 types of personal liberations, none of them will be aspired after by my pure devotees. Diyamanam Lagahananti. And here Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, and Jiva Goswami also comments, there are 3 commentaries on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Let us first discuss some basic related items about this treatise. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, or the ocean of the nectarian mellows of pure devotional service. This Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is originally compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami on the inspiration and blessings and the gracious guidance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And the ingredient core part of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu are the instructions of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu given to Rupa Goswami in the ending chapters of Madhya Leela. So, this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is commented upon 3 times in Sanskrit language by our previous acharyas. So, the first and the foremost acharya, historically speaking, in a historical sequence, the first acharya to comment on this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu is Srila Jiva Goswami. And Srila Jiva Goswami, being the nephew of Srila Rupa Goswami, because he was the contemporary of Rupa Goswami, he was well aware of the internal moods and sentiments of Rupa Goswami. And it would not be an exaggeration to declare that without the assistance of Rupa Goswami or without the assistance of Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami would not have been able to complete this unprecedented book. There are many evidences proving that as long as Jiva Goswami was distanced from Rupa Goswami, even within the diameter of 2 years, was not able to complete this book. But as soon as Srila Jiva Goswami was allowed to be in the vicinity of Rupa Goswami, to be close to Rupa Goswami, within 1 week of that allowance, of that permittance, the whole book was finished by the gracious guidance of Jiva Goswami, who was able to dissipate all the doubts of Srila Rupa Goswami, which arose in his mind while writing Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And those doubts were the impediments which were not allowing Rupa Goswami to complete the book. So, Jiva Goswami as such is even considered more significant authority on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu than anyone else. So, Jiva Goswami has written a commentary known as Durgama Sangamani Tika. Durgama Sangamani Tika means that the literal meaning of the word Durgama Sangamani is that commentary, Tika means commentary, that commentary which combines the reader, the person, the devotee who is studying who is making an in-depth perusal of this treatise, that devotee who is studying this book, it combines that devotee, this commentary, it combines that devotee with the insurmountable ocean of this Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. That is the literal meaning of Turkam Sangamani Tika. So this is the first commentary by Jiva Goswami. After Jiva Goswami, the disciple of Shri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, known as Shri Mukunda Das Goswami, who was the contemporary of Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivasa Acharya and Shyamanand Prabhu. That Mukunda Das Goswami, the direct disciple of Krishnadas, he compiled a second commentary in Sanskrit on this book known as Artha-Ratnalpa Deepika, or illumination on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu while using concise statements. That is the meaning of Artha-Ratnalpa Deepika. And the third commentary ever written on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the third and the last commentary in Sanskrit, is by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has revealed many of the esoteric meanings of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Also, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written another small book known as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. Sindhu means ocean and Bindu means a drop. A drop of the ocean of nectar of devotion. That is the meaning of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, for the sake of making the beginning students understand the whole basic concept of Rupa Goswami's treatise, he has summarized Rupa Goswami's treatise into a small book known as A Drop of the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu. And after Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur summarized this book, Jiva Goswami has also expounded on the same subject matter in his treatise known as Bhakti Sandarbha and Preeti Sandarbha. Also, Ujjwala Neelamani is considered the appendix portion of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Ujjwala Neelamani is also compiled by Srila Rupa Goswami, and Ujjwala Neelamani also has commentaries by Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written Ananda Chandrika commentary, and Jiva Goswami has written Lochana Lochini commentary on the Ujjwala Neelamani of Rupa Goswami. Both the commentaries are in Sanskrit. So, the higher aspects of Prema Tattva, the higher aspects of the unending transcendental love for Shri Krishna, the higher stages of devotion are dealt with in Ujjwala Neelamani, they are not dealt with in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Now the question will arise that what are these higher aspects of devotion? What are these higher aspects of devotion which are dealt in Ujjwala Neelamani and which are not dealt with in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu? So the answer is given in the first canto or the first division of Ujjwala Neelamani. The answer is given in the division known as Sthayi Bhav Prakaran. Sthayi Bhav Prakaran. In that section of Ujjwala Neelamani, Rupa Goswami states that even after the objective of devotional path has been obtained. And what is the objective of devotional path? Srila Jiva Goswami makes very clear in the very beginning of Tattva Sandarbha that the objective of devotional service on the level of practice, also known as sadhana bhakti, the objective of sadhana bhakti is only prema bhakti and nothing else. That is why, stating this, even Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written, Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajesha Tarayah Tadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kachidupasana Brajavathu Vargena Ya Kalpita Shriman Bhagavatam Pramamalam Prema Pumartho Mahan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatradaro Navarah. All the four themes have been very concisely described in this single verse by Srinath Chakravarti Thakur. The truth about Sambandh Jnana, the truth about Abhideya Jnana, and the truth about Prayojan Jnana, and the truth about Pramana Tattva, all the four, generally known as Anubandha Chatushkai, or the four topics, the four most essential topics of the Shastras. What are the four most essential topics of the Shastras? Praman, that's the evidence. Sambandh, that's the relationship the living entity has with the personality of Godhead. Abhidheya, upon being cognizant of the relationship, upon being acquainted with the true nature of the relationship of the living entity with the personality of Godhead, when relationship is known as Abhidheya, that is the devotional service on the level of practice, sadhana bhakti. That is the same as Abhidheya. And after Abhidheya, as a fruit of devotional service, which is practiced as a means, as a fruit of devotional service which is practiced as a means, sadhana bhakti. So as a fruit of that sadhana bhakti, prema bhakti, or the unalloyed transcendental love for the lotus feet of the Lord, which is completely unmotivated and uninterrupted, being incessant, being without, being not obstructed by any impediments. That pure devotional service on the level of love is known as prema bhakti, and that prema bhakti is known as prayojana tattva, the ultimate goal. Prayojana tattva means the ultimate goal. The goal of sadhana, the goal of means, or the goal of practice is prayojana. Sadhana bhakti is just means or practice, and the goal of sadhana bhakti is prema bhakti. So sadhana bhakti is abhidheya, prema bhakti is prayojana, and the knowledge that Lord is the servant and I am the servitor, Sevya Sevak Jnana, that is the Sambandha Jnana. And Pramana Tattva, the evidence, from where all these three types of knowledges are derived, is known as the source of knowledge or the evidence. So, in this verse, Srinatha Chakravarti Pad, he describes all the four according to the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in a very concise way and in a very affirmative and transparent way. Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanaya. Who is the worshipable Lord? The worshipable Lord is the son of Maharaj Nand and Yashoda. The son of Maharaj Nand, the king Nand, and Mother Yashoda. The king of the cowherd inhabitants of Vrindavan is Nand Maharaj. So the son, the foster son of Nand Maharaj and Yashoda, who is known as Vrajendra Nandan, Shyam Sundar, Govinda or Shri Krishna of Vrindavan. That Shri Krishna of Vrindavan is the third principle. Aradhyo Bhagavan Vrajeshaktaya. And what is the relationship of living entity with that son of Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda? The living entity is naturally the devotee, the worshipper, and the servant and the eternal servitor of that son of Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda. Aradhyo. So that's the relationship, that's the Sambandha Jnana. And where does that personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, who is always manifest in his adolescent form as son of Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda in Vrindavan Dham, where does that personality of Godhead reside? So the answer is given, he resides in a transcendental realm known as Vrindavan Dham. In that transcendental realm he resides. So the Krishna of Dwarka and the Krishna of Mathura. Although Krishna is one and the same personality, although Krishna is the same personality without any differentiation in the person, in the personality, but still that same Shri Krishna appears in three different forms. Shri Krishna's pastimes in Dwarka are also eternal. Shri Krishna's pastimes in Mathura are also eternal, and Shri Krishna's pastimes and divine exploits in Vrindavan Dham are also eternal. Eternal means that they have no beginning and they have no end. That which has no adi and ant, that which has no beginning and end is known as eternal, nitya or shashvat. Nitya or shashvat, eternal. Imperishable, immortal or inexhaustible. So, the pastimes of the Lord being not different from the inherent nature of the Lord. The innate, inherent nature of the Lord is known as Swarupa. The Lord's Swarupa. Swarupa means the constitutional position or the innate identity of the Lord. And because the transcendental nomenclatures, the transcendental appearances and countenances or the forms, nomenclatures means the names and designations, names, forms, attributes, qualities, pastimes, entourage, and his holy abodes. All these paraphernalia, because they are completely not different from the internal identity of the Lord. That is why, because the Lord is also eternal, imperishable, so the pastimes of the Lord are also of the same acquired nature. That means that the pastimes of the Lord are also without beginning and without end. Because the Lord has been stated as Anadiradir Govinda, Sarvakarana Karana. In the very first verse of Brahma Samhita, the Lord has been declared as without any cause, Anaditi, and the cause of all other causes. And because the pastimes of the Lord are not different from His personality, the deeds and the divine exploits performed by the Lord, accomplished by the Lord, because they are not different from His personality. Unlike any material action being different from its performer, unlike any material action, any phenomenal activity being different from its performer, the pastimes of the Lord are completely not different. On contrary, they are completely different. That means the pastimes of the Lord are one and the same with the Lord. They are not in the same way. The material actions are different from its performer. So, the pastimes of the Lord are also without beginning and without end. They are completely eternal. So, because the pastimes of the Lord in Dwarka, in Mathura, and in Vrindavan Dham are completely eternal, why the pastimes of the Lord are completely eternal there in these three transcendental abodes? Because those three transcendental abodes, which are the shelter both for the pastimes and the performers of those pastimes, there is a need, there is an absolute essential need of a place in order to be the pastimes to be performed. In order for the pastimes to be performed, there is absolute need for a place, for a base, for a shelter, for a ground, for a locality. So, the performer of the pastimes are the associates of the Lord and the Lord Himself, and the pastimes. So, shelter is needed for both the pastimes to occur and for the Lord's associates and for the Lord to stay. And that shelter, that base is known as Dham. And Dham is the product of Sandhini Shakti. Whereas the pastimes are the product of Ahladini Shakti. And whereas the Yoga Maya, who works as a coordinator of the pastimes of the Lord, the superintendent of the pastimes of the Lord, is none other than the Sambit Shakti. These are the three types of internal potencies: Sambit, Ahladini, and Sandhini. So, Sandhini corresponds to the Sat aspect, Sambit corresponds to the Chit aspect, and Ahladini corresponds to the Ananda aspect. These three aspects are found within the personality of Godhead. That is why even Brahma has declared that Ishvara Paramaha Krishna Satchid Ananda Vigraha, whose transcendental personal form is the very embodiment, is the very personification of Satchit and Ananda. Sat being defined as perpetual existence, Chit being defined as all cognition, all knowledge, and Ananda being defined as paramount, most exalted and paramount form of transcendental felicity existing. Yes. So, Sat, Chit and Anand, these are the three aspects found within the personality of Godhead. And because the internal potency of the Lord is not different from His internal, innate, inherent identity and nature, that's why the internal potency is also divided threefold. Now, a question arises: what is internal potency's relationship with the personality of Godhead? So, Srila Jiva Goswami answers this question in his Bhagavad Sandarbha, the second of the 6 Sandarbhas. In his second Sandarbha known as Bhagavad Sandarbha, Jiva Goswami answers this question by quoting from Vishnu Puran during the conversation of Maitreya Muni and Parashar Muni. Parashar Muni has spoken some verses regarding the relationship of internal potency with the personality of God. So there it is said in Vishnu Puran that the internal potency of the Lord, Antaranga Shakti, also known as Swarupa Shakti, that internal potency of the Lord is just like the heat and the heat giving and the light giving potencies of fire. the heat giving and the light giving potencies of fire. Fire has these two potencies. A mundane phenomenal example is again given just to make the transcendental concept somewhat clear. The example of mundane fire, worldly fire, is given. Fire is the potent principle. Fire is the energetic principle. And the energetic principle fire has two types of energies, two types of potencies. The first is the potency known as heat, and the second is the potency known as light. So the light potency is what illuminates all the items which come near to the fire. And the heat potency is what burns all the objects which come near to fire. So these are the two potencies that a fire possesses. Fire being the potent, not the potency, and these two potencies being completely not different from the fire because they are inherent within fire's nature. If you try to segregate, if you try to make separate these two potencies from fire, fire will lose its meaning. Fire will lose its existence, its very existence. Fire will no more remain fire. If heat potency and light potency, if these two potencies are taken out from fire, then fire will have no meaning. Why? Because these two potencies form the core part, the swarupa, the core part, the inner identity of fire. In the same way, Ahladini Shakti, Sandhini Shakti and Samvita Shakti, all these three potencies, they also form the core part of Lord's existence, the inner identity of Lord's existence. Now, Sandhini Shakti is produced from the Sat aspect of the Lord, Samvita Shakti is produced from the Chit aspect, and Ahladini is produced from the Anand aspect. Now, a question arises. If we say that Sandhini, Samvita and Ahladini are produced from Sat, Chit and Ananda, that means there is a cause and effect relationship. Janya Janak Sambandh, Janya Janak Bhav. In the Nyaya Shastra, in the philosophical system of Nyaya or logic, we discuss about Janya Janak Bhav or the cause and effect relationship. What is that cause and effect relationship? The cause and effect relationship is the relationship that pervades the producer and the produced. Just like yogurt and milk. Milk is the producer and yogurt is produced from milk. So there is a cause and effect relationship between milk and yogurt. In the same way, there must be cause and effect relationship between Sat and Sandhini, between Chit and Samvit, and between Anand and Ahladini. If you say that the potencies are produced from Sat, Chit and Anand, that means they should have interrelationships of cause and effect. Now, what is the interrelationship? How to differentiate Sat from Sandhini? How to differentiate Chit from Samvit? How to differentiate Anand from Ahladini? Well, the transcendental pleasure, which is completely above the three modes of nescience. Three modes of nescience. Nescience means avidya, maya, material nature, illusion. When the transcendental paramount bliss, which is not temporal in its nature, but which is rather perpetual and eternal. All forms of mundane flickering happiness are temporal. Kshay Sukh and Kshay Anand is available in the material world. Whereas in the spiritual transcendental abode of the Lord, only paramount, incessant, eternal bliss is available without any scope of its being temporal. So, the eternal bliss which is present within the inner identity of the Lord is known as Swarupanand, or the transcendental bliss that is present in the Swarupa, in the inner part of the Lord's existence. And due to this Swarupananda, due to this transcendental pleasure, always existing in Lord's internal nature, Lord always remains self-satisfied, self-dependent, Atmakam, Atmaram, and Purna. Purna means the Lord is complete. He is Atmakam. All his desires are fulfilled. And Atmaram, he finds pleasure within himself. He doesn't have to seek pleasure outside. He doesn't have to find He doesn't have to investigate. He doesn't have to search after. He doesn't have to look hither and thither after forms of happiness which are existing outside of his self. He is rather self-satisfied. His self itself produces such condensed paramount bliss that he doesn't need to find pleasure outside his personality. That is why the Lord, the Parabrahman, the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead is stated in the Vedas as being Atmaram and Purna. The very first mantra of Ishopanishad, Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnamadakshate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om. This is the very first mantra of Ishavasya Upanishad. So, in the very first mantra of the Ishavasya Upanishad, it is stated that the Lord is complete. Complete means he doesn't look after happiness anywhere outside from himself. If he would search happiness or bliss outside of his self, existing outside of his self, then it would mean that the Lord is not complete. Rather, he is incomplete. That is why he is looking after pleasure extraneous to his self. That is why he is looking after that pleasure. So, Sat Chitanananda, that transcendental pleasure which is existing within the inner self of the Lord is known as Ananda. But when the same Ananda existing inside the Lord's personality manifests itself extraneous and outside the Lord's personality in a separate personal form consisting of all transcendental limbs, organs and bodily parts, then that is known as Ahladini Shakti. That is known as Ahladini Shakti. This is not possible in the material world. In a material world, feelings of happiness, knowledge, etc. cannot manifest themselves into personality figures. In a material world, if you say that let my happiness be manifest in a personal form, is that possible? Can happiness existing in your mind assume a personal form and appear in front of you? Being external to your personality? No, it is not possible. But because in the transcendental world, everything impossible is made possible. Because of the inconceivable potency of the Lord, Achintya Shakti. And the inconceivable potency of the Lord has a speciality. The reason why that potency of the Lord is inconceivable is because that potency of the Lord harmonizes all types of contradictions existing simultaneously. That is why Virod Bhanjika Shakti. What is Virod Bhanjika Shakti? All types of apparent contradictions are harmonized at the same time by the inconceivable potency of the Lord. Lord is at the same time, just one example is given, at the same time Lord is existing outside Mother Yashoda, outside Mother Yashoda's personal form. His Lord is existing as a separate entity in front of Yashoda. And when Lord has exposed his universal form in front of Mother Yashoda, on the banks of Yamuna, Brahma in Gokul Mahavana. At that time, at the time of Vishwarup Darshan, at the time of showing universal form, within the mouth of that Damodar Krishna, within the mouth of that Nandanandan Yashodanandan Krishna, Yashoda has visualized that she is also within the mouth of Krishna, and then the next most astonishing thing that she sees is even Shri Krishna is again inside the mouth of Shri Krishna. And the same scenario which is existing in the mouth of Mother Yashoda. That means Mother Yashoda is chastising Krishna for eating the mud of Gokul Mahavana. For eating the mud of Gokul Mahavana, for eating the clay, she is chastising Krishna. So that same scene she is visualizing inside the mouth of Krishna. Is it contradictory? But it is still harmonized, it is still simultaneously existing. And there are many such contradictions. And the most important contradiction which is harmonized by the inconceivable potency of the Lord is that at the same time, Ananda or the transcendental pleasure is always within the personality of the Lord, being His integrated part, and at the same time, simultaneously, that transcendental paramount bliss is also existing separately and extraneous to Lord's self, assuming a personal figure. So, when these three aspects of Satchitananda, when they make themselves manifest extraneous to the personality of Godhead, when they make themselves manifest extraneous to the form of Krishna, when they manifest outside the form of Krishna, assuming personal forms, assuming personal forms and figures, then they are known as Shaktis. As long as these Shaktis they are within the personality of Godhead, then they are known as Satchitananda. When they manifest outside, then they are known as Samvita Shakti, Ahladini Shakti and Sandhini Shakti. That is the relationship here. Now the question arises, what need was there for the Ahladini Shakti to make itself manifest simultaneously extraneous to the identity of the Lord? What was the need? If Lord is fully self-satisfied, due to that paramount bliss existing within His inner self, if the Lord is fully satisfied, if He is not dependent on anyone else for His satisfaction or for His pleasure, then why the Ananda aspect, the pleasure aspect of the Lord, the bliss aspect of the Lord manifests itself outside God's personality? That is a question which will naturally arise in the minds of the audience. The answer is given, especially by Srila Jiva Goswami. The answer is given that just like a person has 5 types of airs within his body, generally known as Apan Vayu, Dhyan Vayu, Udan Vayu, Saman Vayu, etc. and Pran Vayu. Person has 5 types of primary bodily airs existing within his body. So, one of the 5 bodily airs comes out from the mouth at the time of whistling or at the time of screaming, yelling, roaring or talking. The specific type of air comes out from the mouth. So that air which comes out from the mouth stays in the abdominal region. Abdominal region is the place where that air stays. That air which has a specific function and which is utilized in the process of talking, in the process of whistling, whispering, etc. All the mouth related activities. All the 5 airs have different specific functions to perform in the body. So that particular air which does all these functions is present in the abdominal region. It is already there inside the body. Inside one's personality, that air is already existing. But when that air comes out from the mouth in the form of an enchanting, sweet, whistling sound, sound is none other than the transformation of that air which stays in the abdominal region and which comes out through the mouth. So the air transforms itself into sound. The air transforms itself into the sound due to various processes of the mouth organ. So when the same air comes out through the mouth as whistling, sweet, enchanting sound, then it attracts the person who is the performer of the activity of whistling. So in short, the person who is whistling, it enchants, the whistling sound enchants the whistler. The whistling sound enchants the whistler, but that whistling sound is none other than his own personal self. The sound has also become manifest from his own voice box through the mouth and through the interaction of the air. So sound is none other than a part of his own body. But even though it is none other than the part of his own body, he is still attracted by that sound. And as long as that air remains within the abdominal region in a dormant stage, that air was not able to attract that person. But when that same air comes out from his mouth as a whistling sound, it even attracts. The sweet melody of that whistling sound even attracts the person who is whistling, the performer of whistling. It even attracts the performer of whistling. But on the other hand, when the same sound, when the same bodily air is put into the holes of a flute, bamboo flute, and when that same air passes through the holes of a bamboo flute and then comes out again from the holes of the bamboo flute and re-enters the ears of that person, then it enchants the person in ultimate sense. Even whistling could not have enchanted that person in the way that the sound of the flute enchants that person. And the sound of that flute is none other than the air coming from his own abdomen and mouth. What is actually Jiva Goswami trying to establish here? Jiva Goswami is trying to refute the impersonalistic theory of monists who say that impersonal Brahman is full of pleasure. Why, if the impersonal Brahman is full of pleasure, why it needs to assume a personal figure, a personal form, and why he needs to play sportive pastimes with his associates and with his devotees? If the personality of Godhead performs sportive pastimes with his devotees and associates, and then after by the interaction or by the reciprocation of the personality of Godhead with his devotees and associates, by that reciprocation, if the Lord becomes satisfied, then it means that the Lord's self-satisfaction is dependent on his devotees and on his associates. The Lord no more remains self-satisfied. The Lord no more remains Atmaram, Aptakam and Purnakam. Yes, that is the biggest argument given by the impersonalists. If the Lord is full of pleasure, then it is innate identity, then why he needs to assume a personal form? Why that impersonal Brahman needs to assume a personal form, and why he needs to interact and reciprocate with his devotees and thereby get pleasure from them? That is why I consider the personal form of the Lord to be incomplete, to be not self-dependent, to be not self-satisfied, and to be not self-satisfactory. This is the biggest argument posed by the impersonalists. Now, the refutation is given by Srila Jiva Goswami. The refutation is that the Ananda is always present, the eternal transcendental bliss, as well as the cognition, as well as the perpetual existence. Both the Sat, Chit and Ananda aspects are always present within the internal identity of the Lord, but when they make themselves appear separate from Lord's identity and assume a personal form, and then when they try to satisfy the Lord, that satisfies the Lord more than if they would have remained inside the personality of the Lord. And the example of the air being transformed as a flute sound is given here. The air being transformed as a flute sound, or the air, or the example of whistling is given here to explain this point. The example of whistling and flute sound is just given to explain this point to the so-called impersonalists and monists, the Gyanis, who are always malicious and envious of the bhaktas or the devotees of the Lord. So, when the Ananda aspect, when the Ananda aspect or the Swarup Ananda, the internal pleasure of the Lord, when it manifests itself outside the Lord's personality, it doesn't mean that since it has now gone outside Lord's personality, it doesn't exist within Lord's personality. No. It simultaneously exists outside and inside Lord's personality. It is simultaneously extraneous and within the personality of the Lord at the same time. And this is due to the inconceivable potency of the Lord, known as Achintya Shakti or Vinodbhajika Shakti, which harmonizes all contradictions. So, when the Ananda Shakti, when the Ahladini Shakti or the pleasure-giving potency manifests herself into a personal form, she is known as none other than Vrishabhanandini Srimati Radhika. And when the chid aspect, the cognitive aspect, manifests itself into a personal form, extraneous to Lord's identity, then it is known as Samvita Shakti, which is none other than Yogamaya Devi. And when the Sat aspect found within Lord's personality manifests itself extraneous to Lord's personality, then it is known as Lord's holy abode, Dham. Dham is none other than Sandhini Shakti personified. And Bhagavati Purnamasi Devi and Bhagavati Vrinda Devi, they are none other than Goddess Purnamasi and Goddess Vrinda. They are none other than Yogamaya or the Samvita Shakti personified, the superintendent of pastimes of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan. Pastimes of Lord Krishna in Vrindavan occur on 5 types of platforms: Shant, Das, Sakya, Vatsalya and Shringar, as we discussed yesterday. So the pastimes of the Lord which occur on the platform of Shantarati, Dasyarati, Sakyarati and Vatsalyarati. We are only talking about the Vrindavan pastimes. No Dwarka pastime, no Mathura pastime here. The pastimes of the Lord that He displays in Vrindavan, but in the first 4 meadows, those pastimes are supervised, controlled and coordinated by a special form of Yogamaya known as Bhagavati Purnamasi Devi. And the pastimes of Lord Krishna occurring in Vrindavan purely on the platform of paramour conjugal love, Shringar, are controlled, supervised and coordinated by Vrinda Devi, whose partial expansion is Tulsi Bhagavati. So Vrinda Devi is the Samvit aspect, Samvit Shakti personified, and the Golok Vrindavan Dham is Sandhini Shakti personified, and Srimati Radhika, the daughter of King Vrishabhanu, is Ahladini Shakti personified, and Shri Krishna is the possessor of all these 3 potencies. He is the Shaktiman. And his partial aspect as Shaktiman are Paramatma and impersonal Brahman. This is the relationship. So, what we are describing is that because the Lord's pastimes in Dwarka, Mathura and Vrindavan are all beginningless. In Brajbhumi there are 2 Yogamayas, Purnamasi and Vrinda. In Dwarka there is Subhadra is the Yogamaya in Dwarka. Subhadra is the Yogamaya in Dwarka, and in Mathura Ekanansha is the Yogamaya. Ekanansha. Ekanansha, the daughter of Mother Yashoda. That daughter of Mother Yashoda, Vasudeva, also known as Anand Dundubi. Vasudeva has another name, Anand Dundubi. That Vasudeva or Anand Dundubi who brought the daughter, the infant daughter of Mother Yashoda, and she slipped away from Kansa's grip. So that Yogamaya, known as Ekanansha Devi, she is the Yogamaya from Mathura. Now the question arises again. No, that cannot be Yogamaya, that was Mahamaya. That was Goddess Durga, because as soon as she slipped away from Kansa's hand, she transformed herself into Goddess Durga. And it is very clear that she is not internal potency, she is external potency by reading the account of Ekanansha given in the 10th canto of Bhagavatam by Vyasdev. Now, is Kansa eligible to see the divine form of Yogamaya? No. Just like Ravana was not able to perceive the real Sita, he was only able to perceive the fake Sita instead of the real Sita. In the same way, Ekanansha, as long as she is in the hand of Vasudeva, she is in the hand, she is in the grip and grasp of Vasudeva, she remains internal potency. And as long as she is there, but as long as Kansa tries, when she appears in front of Kansa, then she doesn't appear, she hides herself, rather separated expansion of Ekanansha. Separated expansion, Vibhinnansha of Ekanansha, who is Goddess Durga, who is the nature of the shadow or reflection of Ekanansha. That external potency, Goddess Durga, rather makes herself manifest in front of Kansa. So, Ekanansha is always present in Mathura, but Kansa is not able to see. she immediately makes herself unmanifest when Kansa tries to get hold of her. But she is always present in Mathura. So Ekanaksha is the Yog Maya of Mathura, Subhadra Devi is the Yog Maya of Dwarka pastimes, and Yog Maya of Vrindavan are Vrinda and Purnamasi Devis. This is all mentioned by our Goswamis in the literatures, especially like Anand Vrindavan Champu and Gopal Champu. And also in the Radha Krishna Gauntesh Deepika by Rupa Goswami. So, the point we were discussing here, and that we want to summarize now because the limit of time is approaching us. So, the point, the centermost theme is Aradhya Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanaya Tadhama Vrindavanam. The worshipable Lord, with whom living entity has a relationship of being servant and the Lord being his servant. That worshipable Lord, who is the son of Maharaj Nanda and Yashoda, and who always appears himself in adolescent form in Vrindavan, being the master of the life of Srimati Radhika, Prananath of Srimati Radhika. That Radha Vallabh Shri Krishna is the sole servant principle according to the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and the place where both the pastimes of that Shri Krishna occur and the place where Shri Krishna and his associates stay, the very base and the very shelter ground of the occurrence of Lord's pastimes and Lord and his associates is known as Vrindavan Dham. Is known as Vrindavan Dham. Ramya Kaji Upasana Vrajamatu Vargenaya Kalpita. So in the first line of the verse, Sambandha Gyan has been exposed. In the second line of the verse, Ramya Kaji Upasana Vrajamatu Vargenaya Kalpita, the method and the process of devotion is described. That is the Abhidev, that is the Sadhana Bhakti. What type of Sadhana Bhakti? Raga Rohan type of Sadhana Bhakti, which is following in the footsteps of Raga Das Bhakti. Raga Sadhana Bhakti and Raga Bhakti is what is present within the hearts of the cowherd damsels of Vrindavan Dham, headed by Srimati Radhika, etc. That is the form of sadhana, that is the form of devotional service which is to be practiced in the line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is the goal actually, to attain the same type of love that the gopis of Vrindavan have. So Ramya Kaji Upasana Vrajavadhu Vargenaya Kalpita, this is the Abhidev Gyan or the Sadhana Bhakti. This is the form of Sadhana Bhakti, Raganuga form of, and especially even within Raganuga, Kamanuga form of Sadhana Bhakti. We will all describe this in later sessions. Because all these terms have been described by Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. What does Raganuga mean? What does Kamanuga mean? What does Ragatmika mean? What Kamatmika means? What Sambandhrupa means? What Sambandhanuga means? All these terms are described. So, what is the evidence? What is the source of knowledge through which all these various Sambandha Gyan and Abhidev Gyan etc. are derived? What is the source of knowledge? That is the spotless literature, bereft of and devoid of all sorts of mundane inabilities and contaminations, known as spotless evidence, Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam, Prema Pumartho Mahan. And the ultimate goal or prayojan is prem, or the transcendental unalloyed love for the lotus feet of Shri Krishna. Prema Pumartho Mahan, which is the fifth goal, which is the last goal, dharma, artha, kama and moksha, so-called religious ritualistic activities, so-called economic development and prosperity, so-called sensual gratification, and the 5 types of liberations. These are all cheating forms of religion. Dharma, prajita, kaita, mantra, paramo, nirvatsaranam, sadam. Srimad Bhagavatam very boldly declares that these are all cheating. Dharma, kama, moksha, everything is cheating. Everything. None of these are the ultimate goal of life. That is why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers are the first ones to declare that prem is the Pancham Purusharth. The love of the love to the lotus feet of Shri Krishna is the fifth and the last and the ultimate goal of human life, surpassing, excelling all the 4 abominable goals, all the 4 nefarious goals in comparison. So, Premam Purtho Mahan, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matmidam Tatra Darunamaraha. This is the opinion of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Any other opinion which will appear contradictory to this will be discarded, will be disregarded, will be completely looked upon by the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So prema is the last goal. Prema Bhakti is the last objective of sadhana bhakti. But even after prema bhakti, there exist many different higher categories that we will describe tomorrow, and which have been described in short in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, but which have been exposed in great elaboration in Ujjwal Neelmani, which acts as an appendix, or Parishishta. Parishishta means appendix, which acts as an appendix to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. When Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Ujjwal Neelmani are combined together, then the whole science of devotional service becomes very clear. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Any question by? Yes.
My question is, you mentioned before about how Krishna passed all.
Yes.
So you mentioned that Krishna passed for all eternal, whether if they're in Vrindavan or Mathura or Dwarka.
Yes.
And in every situation, like in those pastime, there was demons or some sort of enemies of Krishna, and the experience always seemed to enliven or somehow bring out a deeper experience with Krishna and his associates. So how in the spiritual world are there demons, or are there these combatants to fight with Krishna?
Only during the Pragat Leela, only during the manifest pastimes of Lord Krishna, demons have privilege. Not only demons, all sorts of living beings, including karmis, nishkam karmis, sakam karmis, jnanis, yogis, demons, asur, everyone. Even though they may not be pure devotees, everyone and anyone has privilege to enter into the manifest pastimes of the Lord, even though they are ineligible to appreciate those pastimes, they can at least enter and see those pastimes. That's why we see that when Krishna appeared along with his entourage and associates 5,200 years back in Mathura, in Vrindavan, at that time, when he was performing his pastimes in Vrindavan and Dwarka and Mathura and all these three places, he encountered many different demons. But in the eternal pastimes of Lord Krishna, in the Vrindavan, Mathura and Dwarka of spiritual world, and in the eternally going pastimes of Shri Krishna in Vrindavan, Mathura and Dwarka of this material world, the demons cannot enter. What to speak of demons? No other living entity except for who is qualified can never enter. There are three types of pastimes of the Lord. Shri Krishna has three types of pastimes in a single place. Let's say in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, Shri Krishna has three different types of pastimes. Pragat Bhauma Leela, Apragat Bhauma Leela, and Nitya Gaurav Leela. So, Mathura, Dwarka and Vrindavan are in the spiritual world are also present in the spiritual sky. And Mathura, Vrindavan and Dwarka are also present in this material sky on this earth planet within the country or within the land of India. Within the land of India, Bharatvarsh, in this material sky, on this earth planet, also Mathura, Dwarka and Vrindavan are present. And the Mathura, Vrindavan and Dwarka which are present here are completely not different in identity and in nature and in power and glories to the Mathura, Dwarka and Vrindavan present in the spiritual sky. Absolutely not different. In fact, the Mathura, Vrindavan and Dwarka, especially the Vrindavan which is present here on this earth planet, is even more important to the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu than the Vrindavan situated in the spiritual sky. There are many reasons given. Because the pastimes in most condensed form of Shringar never occur in the Vrindavan situated in the spiritual sky. But the pastimes, especially the Paramount pastimes, in their last limit occur only on this Vrindavan manifest on this earth planet. So the Vrindavan which is manifest on this earth planet is rather known as Bhaum Vrindavan. Bhaum means Bhumi, earth, Bhaum Vrindavan. So, now in the Bhauma Vrindavan there are two types of pastimes taking place, and in the Vrindavan, in the spiritual sky, there is only one type of pastime taking place. In together there are three types of pastimes that the Lord performs simultaneously. So among the three types of pastimes, in only one pastime, those people who are not anointed, whose eyes are not anointed with the collyrium of love, premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena, santah sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti, yam shyam sundaram achitya guna swarupam govindamani purushottamaham bhajami. Those people, those unqualified, ineligible people, whose eyes are not anointed with the salves and with the collyrium of loving devotional service, they are not able to enter in the rest of the two types of leelas. They are only able to enter within one of the three types of leelas, and that is the Pragat Leela of Bhauma Vrindavan. That is the manifest pastimes of earthly Vrindavan. Earthly Vrindavan. Only the manifest pastimes of earthly Vrindavan. Not, they are not even able to enter in the unmanifest eternal pastimes of earthly Vrindavan, and within the unmanifest eternal pastimes of Vrindavan situated in the spiritual world. They are not able to enter. So when Krishna manifests his Pragat Leela, his manifest pastimes on this Vrindavan, earthly Vrindavan, only once in the whole day of Brahma. Only in one Dwapar, among 1,000 Dwapars, or approximately 996, yes. In 996 Dwapar Yugas, in one day of Brahma, there are 996 Dwapar Yugas, 996 Treta, 996 Satya Yuga, and 996 Kali Yugas. So in one day of Brahma, among the 996 Dwapar Yugas, Krishna appears and manifests his Pragat Leela, his manifest pastime, only once. And that also for 125 years only. And in Vrindavan, he manifests his pastimes of Pragat Leela only for 11 years and 52 days. Rest of the years are spent either in Mathura or in Dwarka, or from going to Hastinapur and coming back like that. That's the manifest pastime. Only there the demons can enter, nowhere else. So, in the eternal pastimes of both the earthly Vrindavan, in the unmanifest eternal pastimes of both the earthly Vrindavan and the Vrindavan of the spiritual sky, only those who are qualified can enter, no one else. That is the final Siddhanta. Yes, any other question? Okay, yes, please.
So, what is the relationship? How Lord Balaram connected with the chief potency?
Lord Balaram is actually connected with the Sandhini. He is connected with the Sandhini.
But he is Param Guru.
Yes.
Guru. So he is giving knowledge.
Generally, Balaram also has Satchitananda, all the three, because he is the same as Shri Krishna. He is the Kadikatma Swarup. He is the non-different form of Shri Krishna. Balaram is neither expansion nor incarnation of Shri Krishna. Rupa Goswami says Balaram is the same as Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. The only difference is Balaram appears in a little different complexion, in a little different mood, and dressed in little different garments. That's the only difference. So this Balaram, he also has Satchitananda. He also has Sandhini, Samvitana, Hladini. But Balaram is considered predominating deity of the Sandhini aspect. He also has Chit aspect, but he is considered more primarily the predominating deity of the Sandhini aspect of the Lord. That is how the Acharyas have stated Balaram's position. But because Balaram is Adi Guru, he is the original spiritual master, and because the aggregate potency of spiritual master remains only within Balaram's personality. Is that there are actually Jiva Goswami mentions in Bhakti Sandarbh, there are two forms of spiritual master. The aggregate form of spiritual master and the expanded form of spiritual master. So all the spiritual masters which we are seeing or hearing, or which we are perceiving, they are all expanded forms. They are not themselves expanded forms. they have the potency of being Guru, and that potency that they have of being Guru is an expanded portion of the aggregate potency of being Guru, which is present within Balram. So Balram is known as Samashti Guru, and all the other Gurus, they are known as Vyashti Guru. Vyashti means those who are only having limited Guru Shakti. Balram has unlimited Guru Shakti. That's like the reservoir of water. That's like the ocean. Balram is the ocean of Guru Shakti. And all the other Gurus, they only have limited proportion from that ocean. That's how the connection is there. So yes, that is how it Balram has Satchitanand, all the three, but still he is considered more related with the Sajini Shakti. Yes. Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Bolo Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu ki, Nectar of Devotion Evening Seminar ki, Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada ki, Nitya Gaur Premanande, Hare Bol, Hare Bol, Hare Bol.
Thank you very much, Prabhu, for your nice explanations in the next class.
Okay.
And a small announcement to make. Today is a very auspicious day. He's giving class. It's his son's birthday today.
Yes.
Say happy birthday to you.
Yes.
We should have had some nice.
Today is the festival of lights, Diwali.
Yeah.
Right? Yes, that is
And
my
that's your
point.
birthday also.
Yes.
So maybe we should sing happy birthday.
Hare Bol. That's fine. Okay. Hare Krishna.
You always
Thank you very much.
I'm 22 now.
He's 22.
22 years old.
Only 22.
More dear to death. More near to death.
23 years.
Yes.
As per birthday.
we're happy you can celebrate your birthday Sunday. So we don't have more of a party for you.
Yes. Today it was nice.
Yeah, it was very good.
You relished it?
Yeah, definitely. You covered topics that I can understand. I mean, you always do. But
Yeah.
sometimes it gets so deep. And I'm just like, yeah,
Hare Bol.
yeah. I mean, just about association.